Once upon a time, Steve and his 8 biological sons, Louie, 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 and Louie, went to GameStop to buy the new Pikmin 3 Deluxe. Once they bought the game, they went over to Burger King, because nothing else was open. They all sat down and had a great time at Burger King. Later that day, they were walking home to their house to go play the game, but what they didn't realize was that someone was following them. As they walked towards their street, something goes horribly wrong. Steve orders his 8 biological sons to go after the thief, but there was only one man fit for the job. Thick Louie, the 9th son of Steve, chases after the thief. The thief runs to his house, with Thick Louie following behind. Thick Louie struggles to get through the house, as he is too thick to fit through the house without getting stuck. The thief runs in and grabs his fat metal cock and shoots at Thick Louie. Luckily, the Thick Louie thickness makes the bullet bounce off of Thick Louie. The thief runs upstairs and goes to put the game into the switch. But luckily Thick Louie makes his way up the stairs and grabs the fat metal cock. Meanwhile, Steve and his 8 biological sons are running to the house to see what's going down. They run into the house, and it turns out that they worked it out and the thief gave back the game and let the 9 of them chill at his house for the night. Oh no, it turns out that the whole time, the game was actually just a box with no game inside. They all rush back to GameStop. The man at the counter says that they have one left. But just as they are about to get it, something goes horribly wrong.
Sonic wins.
Steve and his 8 biological sons and Thick Louie all chase Sonic through the quiet streets late at night. Eventually, he ends up escaping into his house. Looks like they'll have to find a way in somehow. They all gather behind the house and discuss how to get in. 3 Louies go through the vents and unlock all of the doors in the house. 3 Louies and Steve go into the basement and come out into the house. Thick Louie tries to break into the window, but he is too thick to fit. The remaining 2 Louies come in when the front door is unlocked, and meet the rest of them in the living room. Then, they all go upstairs and find Sonic. They try to take the game, but Sonic hears them. He pulls out his knife.
What am I supposed to do? Jump on your head? It's a fucking knife, I'm gonna stab you with it.
He tries to stab them, but before he can, Thick Louie falls out of the ceiling and crushes Sonic. At last, they finally have the game. And now they have the whole mansion to themselves. What a lovely day. Steve and his 8 biological sons are now going to play the game. But just as they insert the cartridge, something goes horribly wrong. They go to GameStop to get their Nintendo Switch fixed. The man says he can't find anything wrong with it. They give him the copy of Pikmin 3 Deluxe, and it turns out it was a Chinese bootleg the whole time. He's forced to pull out his fat metal cock. They run out of the store, but he follows them into the street. There's only one man that can defeat him. Thick Louie cannot be affected by the bullets. He starts to grow thicker, and flies into the air. He grows and pulls out his thick steel dick of doom. The man has no choice but to surrender. Meanwhile, at Sonic's basement, they all back to the house, disappointed. They will have to wait for GameStop to restock, or journey all the way to South Africa to find another one. One Louie goes down into the basement to dispose of the game. One of the Louies has been trapped in an underground dungeon underneath the basement. There is no way to escape. He will be the test subject for the purple Pikmin's experiments. The purple Pikmin experimented on the louie, and transformed him into Thin Louie comes up into the house. He pulls out his and kills all of the louies inside the house.
Here you go!
The only one who escaped was Steve. And one other. Thick Louie managed to survive.
Oh.
He flies up into the air, but this time, Thin Louie follows him into space. The two keep going up and up. Thick Louie keeps getting thicker, and Thin Louie keeps getting thinner. Eventually, they warp the fabric of space and time and create a wormhole. Thin Louie is too thin, so he gets sucked up into the wormhole and gets teleported to a parallel universe, and erased from existence. Meanwhile, in a parallel universe, Joe and his 8 biological daughters are walking to the store to buy the new Hey Pikmin Deluxe. But just as they are about to get there, a wormhole opens up in the sky. Thin Louie falls out of the wormhole, but there is now 2 Thin Louies. There can only be one Thin Louie. Meanwhile, in the normal universe, the purple Pikmin is about to finish the job, but before he can, a wormhole opens up in the sky. An alternate version of Thick Louie falls out of the wormhole. There can only be one Thick Louie in this universe. Thick Louie and the clone jump off of the planet and become Thick Louie pulls out his The clone pulls out his Luckily, Thick Louie had to fix steel Dick. Meanwhile, in a parallel universe, the 2 Thin Louies are still fighting. Eventually, Thick Louie wins against Thick Louie.
Wow!
The purple Pikmin has no choice but to retreat back to his underground secret dungeon. It turns out that Thin Louie was an imposter Louie and wasn't part of the original 8. Thick Louie is adopted. But all of the original 8 have been taken to the dungeon with the purple Pikmin. Sonic has also gone missing mysteriously. Steve and his adopted son, Thick Louie, travel down into the basement to investigate what's going on underground. They travel 1 level down, then 2 levels down, and then they hear something. It sounds like a growl. They look over, and it's a nightmare version of Sonic. The Sonic nightmare chases them through the tunnels, and then Thick Louie has an idea. Thick Louie stops, and gives the nightmare Sonic a copy of Sonic Mania, and tickets to go see the Sonic movie. The Sonic nightmare stops chasing them, and goes away. They enter a strange room. Everything is quiet. Nobody is here, except for
How exciting!
the purple Pikmin. They came to stop him, but it's too late. He has all of the Louies, and he merges them all into the Louie apparition. He orders it to kill Steve and Thick Louie, but it eats him instead. It starts heading for Steve and Thick Louie next. They run away and try to hide, but it always finds them. Thick Louie pulls out his fat metal cock, but it's no use. The Louie apparition swallows it up. Luckily, Thick Louie is too thick to be sucked in with it. They run all the way out of the house. It can't escape the house, as it is too big to fit through the door. The purple Pikmin is gone, reduced to atoms, and now there's a Louie head on the loose. This is not good. The Louie head has managed to eat everything inside the house, and then the house itself, and then cities, states, countries. And now it has swallowed the entire world. Luckily, some escaped in a spaceship built by Joe from the parallel universe. The Louie head will eventually eat other planets, and then the galaxy, and then the entire universe. Their only hope is to escape to another parallel universe. Inside the ship, Thick Louie meets Bulbman, and Bulbman reads him a story. Once upon a time, Steve and his 8 biological sons, Louie, 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 and Louie, went to GameStop to buy the new Pikmin 3 Deluxe. Bulbman tries to read them a story, but before he can, Thick Louie kindly asks Bulbman to not read the story. Then, they hear someone coming inside the ship. It turns out to be the one, the only, Captain Olimer, from the planet Hot Chocolate. Captain Olimer has come to tell Thick Louie and Joe how to defeat the giant Louie head. He has taken cloning technology from another planet he visited that can create identical clones. He uses this technology to create identical Joe clones. And then he comes up with a plan. He creates 8 identical clones of Thick Louie, and charges them all out of the ship, to fight the Louie apparition in space. The Louie head tries to suck them up, but luckily they are too thick to be sucked up. The Louies all charge at once, and overpower the Louie head. The Louie head starts to get smaller and smaller, until it suddenly sucks something up from another planet. Oh no! There is now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 a lot of Louie heads. They decide to flee to a nearby space station. Inside, Captain Sherlock is preparing the weapons. Captain Olimer comes in and tells Captain Sherlock about his cloning technology. Captain Olimer makes clones of the weapons, and they fire all of them at the Louie storm outside. Sadly, all of the weapons get sucked up by the Louies. They try throwing the Joe clones, but they also get sucked up. They accidentally throw something else out, but they couldn't tell what it was. Eventually, Thick Louie has an idea. They throw all of the Thick Louie clones out into space, and they all become Ultra. But this won't be enough to stop the Louie heads. The 3 Thick Louie clone groups merge into 3 Louies, and then those ones merge into This is not even close to Thick Louie's final form. Captain Olimer used more technology he found to revive everybody. Then, they all went to Sonic's mansion, and played Captain Sherlock's copy of Pikmin 3 Deluxe. The end. Thick Louie has been waiting for so long, and the next game has still yet to come. It's time for a new Pikmin game. It's time for Pikmin 4. Thick Louie leaves the mansion late at night, and heads out in search of the next Pikmin game. It must be out there somewhere. He searches through different stores, hoping to find it, but always comes up empty-handed. It seems like there's nothing good in the nearby stores, so Thick Louie has an idea. He pulls out his phone and calls up the squad to meet behind the mansion. They all gather behind the mansion, and Thick Louie tells them the plan. The group splits up, and they hit every store in town looking for the game, but in the end, they are all left completely Pikmin-less. So, Steve and his 8 biological sons go back to the mansion once again. They ask Sonic if he knows anything about Pikmin 4. But he couldn't talk, because he was in a hurry to get on his flight to Hollywood, to film the Sonic movie sequel. They ask Captain Sherlock if he knows anything. He says they should ask Mr. Miyamoto, instead. They go upstairs and ask Bulbman what the quickest way to Mr. Miyamoto is. Bulbman says the quickest way is by air, so Steve calls up Thick Louie and tells him to come to the mansion. Steve gathers everyone around and tells them his plan. Sonic said he was going on a flight to Hollywood soon, so the plan is to follow him to the airport and sneak onto his plane, completely undetected. Suddenly, there's a loud sound outside. Oh no! Sonic has just taken off in his car. They have to leave now. Luckily, Sonic has a backup car in his basement, so they can use it to chase him. Thick Louie is too thick to fit inside the car, so he stands on top. They chase Sonic through the streets for an hour, barely keeping up. This is their only chance of finding Pikmin 4. Eventually, they make it to the airport at midnight. They follow Sonic inside and try to blend in as much as possible. Captain Olimar was waiting here for them and is also involved in the plan. The group follows Sonic and his friends through the airport carefully, trying not to be seen. After Sonic extracts $9 quintillion from his bank account, he sits in the waiting area until the scheduled departure. Eventually, Sonic gets up and heads over to the boarding gate, with Thick Louie and company following closely behind. Suddenly, a splash potion of invisibility appears out of thin air. But it turns out, it was actually just Joe and one other person that followed the group here to help them sneak onto the plane. Joe throws the invisibility potion, and they all become invisible. This won't last for long, so they have to hurry. Eventually, the flight takes off, and they are aboard. For the first few hours, the plane flies to the destination just fine, with Thick Louie and crew waiting for landing. But then, nearing the end of the flight, when the sun is just coming up, Sonic gets up to go to the bathroom. Sonic discovers Thick Louie hiding in plain sight. But then, strangely, Sonic appears to get so mad that he completely glitches out. Sonic and Thick Louie jump on top of the plane and fight. Sonic pulls out his knife, but now it's corrupted and glitched out. Thick Louie tries to use a gun, but it is ineffective against Sonic. Sonic jumps on the wing and throws the knife at Thick Louie. The knife is ineffective as well, and simply bounces off of Thick Louie. Sonic blocks the knife with his suitcase, but it won't be able to block a bigger object. Thick Louie jumps off of the plane and flies into the air. He flies into space and becomes. He pulls out the thick steel brick of doom and aims it at the plane. He pulls the trigger and sets the whole plane on fire. Sonic jumps off the plane and falls through the clouds below. The plane eventually crashes on a deserted island. Steve, Captain Olimar, Joe, and Bulbman survived the crash. Thick Louie ventures into the forest on the island and collects wood from some nearby trees. Eventually, Thick Louie crafts a thick crafting table and places it on the beach. Joe comes over and uses his professional crafting skills to craft a rocket ship named the SS Shark. Then, Captain Olimar comes over and uses his cloning technology to make several clones of the small ship. Then, Steve and Bulbman come over, and they all get on the ships, taking off into the sky. They fly through the clouds, taking in the view, and slowly fly over to the original destination. But it looks like they forgot one person. The purple Pikmin has been left behind. He goes into the forest, looking for any tools to escape, when he finds someone sitting near some bushes. The purple Pikmin takes this islander deep into the forest. Meanwhile, Thick Louie and company have just run into the glitched version of Sonic again. He once again tries to attack, but Thick Louie deflects it. Captain Oliver clones Thick Louie's
That metal mark.
and it becomes
1,000 nuns.
Sonic pulls out a
Cheetah.
This was the last straw for Thick Louie. Thick Louie aims 1,000 Glocks at Sonic, but they are ineffective. Suddenly, Captain Oliver jumps into space and becomes
Ultra thick.
He uses his newfound thickness to clone the thickest object in the solar system, the sun. He creates a brand new sun, but is unable to move it. Suddenly, Joe jumps into space and pulls out a thick magnet that he crafted with the thick crafting table. He uses the thick magnet to move the sun onto Sonic, which appeared to kill him instantly. After Sonic was successfully defeated, they flew back down to Earth to continue the mission. Meanwhile, the purple Pikmin is deep in the forest late at night, discussing a deal with the rock Pikmin, who had turned out to be a game developer, well known for making solid games. The purple Pikmin pays the rock Pikmin $9 trillion of stolen money to make Pikmin 4. The rock Pikmin accepts the deal and makes Pikmin 4. Eventually, the rock Pikmin returns to the purple Pikmin with Pikmin 4. Pikmin 4 Mobile, of course. The purple Pikmin gives him one more chance to make the actual Pikmin 4. But before he can, a glitched version of Tails suddenly appears from the dark forest and kills the rock Pikmin. The glitched Tails retreats into the forest, and the purple Pikmin chases close behind. He pulls out a gun and shoots Tails. The glitched Tails gets knocked into the sun, but now the forest is on fire. The purple Pikmin quickly escapes onto the shore of the island and takes off in a leftover SS Shark ship that he didn't notice before. Meanwhile, Thick Louie and the crew have arrived in Japan and are ever close to getting to Mr. Miyamoto. As a group, they walk through the streets, looking for any sign of him, when suddenly, they run into what appears to be glitched versions of Knuckles and Amy. The glitched figures follow them through the streets until they run back to the ships. The glitched figures take the ships and both fly directly into the sun. Not into the normal sun, but rather into the second sun, previously cloned by Oliver. The group ponders what to do next without their ships. Then, suddenly, a ship lands in front of them, with the purple Pikmin aboard.
Ooh, that was fun.
The purple Pikmin gives them the ship back if they lead him to Nintendo headquarters for important business matters. They agree, and it turns out that could be the very location of Mr. Miyamoto. Steve has suspicions about the glitched Sonic and his friends, and thinks they could still be alive within the sun. Steve is the only one who can withstand the sun, so he takes the ship and flies into it in search of the glitches. The group heads for the nearest train to Nintendo headquarters and gets on. The conductor says it's just up ahead. Eventually, they get off, and they've reached Nintendo of Japan headquarters. Once inside, they make their way through the building, but still see no sign of Mr. Miyamoto. Eventually, they make it to the conference room, and it's not Mr. Miyamoto. The group leaves, and the purple Pikmin sets down the phone with the Pikmin mobile game on it, hoping to get it officially released, so the Pikmin series won't die. They all back to the train, disappointed. Looks like the search was a failure, after all. But hope is not lost quite yet, as Bulbman tells everybody that he's discovered the location of Mr. Miyamoto by using echolocation. He sits next to the conductor and becomes GPS telling him where to go. Within a few hours, they're here. The gates to Mr. Miyamoto's home He's just beyond these doors. There's no turning back now. None of them had ever seen anything like this before. The atmosphere is filled with the hums of golden-winged Pikmin flying through the sky. The air here is practically made of joy. The Golden Palace is just up ahead. They must hurry. Once inside, the group searches through the palace for a way up to the top floor. It must be where Mr. Miyamoto rests. The silence is deafening, and the taste of victory grows stronger with every step. But it looks like they won't have to take many more.
Please, come forward.
They have entered Miyamoto's throne room. It all comes down to this. Thick Louie demands Pikmin 4 from Miyamoto. It's not very effective. Miyamoto says he'll make Pikmin 4 on one condition. The final battle has begun. What happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? Meanwhile, Steve has entered the second sun. Everything here is made of fire. There is no way out. He must find the glitches and take them down. To his surprise, the glitches find him instead. Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy. They all gather in front of him as if to size up the opponent before the attack. The lightning storm thunders in the distance. The fiery embers of the sun burn eternally, lighting up the atmosphere. It's now or never. This is his only chance. Steve must take them down. Luckily, he borrowed some technology from Olimar and brought it with him to the sun. It's on. Steve and his 78 biological clones are just about to attack. But before they can, suddenly, the glitches return back to their normal forms and die instantly due to being on the sun. How did that happen? Someone must have fixed the code. But who? Checkmate. Miyamoto has returned to his palace after defeat. Thick Louie's abilities, combined with everyone else's, are truly remarkable. Miyamoto decides to make Pikmin 4 if the Pikmin mobile game does well. Meanwhile, it turns out the rock Pikmin didn't die after all, because he's a rock. And that's how he was able to patch out the glitches on the second sun. And now that half the Sonic cast is gone, the Sonic series has officially died. Everyone else goes back to the mansion that once belonged to Sonic and waits patiently for Pikmin 4. The end.